Hi, this is Volleyball Explained podcast again, and with Nicola, we are going to discuss what happened in the first three rounds of the Italian season in Italian Superlega 2022-23. First of all, Nicola, thank you for being here for such a time, yeah,
Yeah,
of absence. Let's start with the results of the first round because we have some surprises. One very big surprise, one a little bit smaller by now, but still big enough. And during the first round, we had the matches between Perugia and Monza, 3-0. Nothing surprising here. Trentino, Siena 3-1. Milano, Cisterna 0-3. Here we have the first signs of something very interesting to come. Piacenza Verona 2-3, another great match, probably the best match of the first round. Taranto Civitanova LUBE 0-3, and Padova Modena 3-2, another surprise. And I would ask you to pick one match and to start with it.
well, I watch particularly Trento, of course. I also watch the game between Trento and Siena. It was nothing special. I mean, we're at the beginning of the season, so most of the team are still working to find out the best plays, the best rhythm, and Trento basically dominated the first two sets, and then was a little bit distracted, as Lorenzetti said, in the third, and then comfortably won the last one. It was a game where none of the team were so special in attack, but Trento, as usual, had a pretty good blocking system. And for the, I think, first time since the Trento in the Superlega, at the end of the game, the MVP was Laurenzano, the libero. So debuting libero MVP for Trento has never happened before, and it is pretty funny because for basically the entire season last year, people were saying that Trento was lacking of a reliable libero, and then the first game of the season, the MVP award went to the libero itself. Siena, as we know, is in Italy we say una squadra di vecchie glorie, so a team of player who has been in the Superlega for years, playing for different teams. I'm talking about, of course, Petric, Van Garderen, Mazzone, Ricci. So I think they just need some time to click together and to adapt the game to the Argentinian setter Finoli. But they look like a pretty decent team once they, let's say, understand how to play at full potential. Trento was still, as for the first three rounds, actually, is still working with some players like the Italian national team players that have came to the team just 10 days before the season started. So they're still working on it. Nothing special, but so far the only victory for Trento in the first three rounds.
Yeah, that's another interesting point we're going to discuss. I will focus myself on probably the blockbuster of the first round between Piacenza and Verona. Firstly, because Piacenza is one of the favorites for the title, and they didn't start that well. They lost against Verona for Dostin Stoichev. Verona, I expected from Verona much better performance than last season, but they actually overperformed, at least in the first two matches. Maxim Sapozhkov, I didn't expect for him to be a starter, but he's playing absolutely amazingly. He scored plenty of points in the first three matches. Možić is on the level he needs to play, even though he has some some deficiencies. Sometimes he's not that confident, but still he has a lot of emotion in his game. Kate is playing with some peaks and some downs, but John Perrin is helping in reception. And there is a very interesting thing about Verona, according to the statistics from the first 3 rounds. And I will put that here because we can start with it. For example, Verona is at the 10th place when it comes to reception, but it's in the top 3 in 3rd place when it comes to attack. So that means that when a team doesn't receive well, but they attack well, that means that they're compensating pretty well on a high ball against a good organized block. And that probably means that if they can improve their reception, that would be a very big boost for Verona, and they can improve even more. When it comes to Piacenza, I think the mechanisms in their team were not that good, and I believe they have only 1 win so far from three rounds against Trento. They lost also to Modena, but let's come to this a little bit later. And Romano is playing very good. Kaneski was playing very good together with Robert Landi Simon, but I don't think everything was working that well in position 4. So it will be interesting how things will develop, because they have a very good squad, probably the best squad in terms of individuals after the team of Perugia. But still interesting. And let's also mention the team of Padova, because Padova beat in the first round the team of
Modena.
The team of Modena as a host. Takahashi, the new Japanese wonder, was really a wonder in the first 2 games. They lost the 3rd match against Cisterna, but he was really good. I believe he was, at least in 1 of 2 matches, he was the MVP. So he's playing very good. Both
matches,
yeah,
round
both
1 and
matches.
2.
Yeah, so it's really great. Dusan Petkovic is playing very well, and Jacopo Coutinho is very, very well, in a very good manner, exchanging Asparuchov and Matthias Desmet, and they're pretty good. They're a great start with both wins against Modena and of course LUBE. But let's go with that to the 2nd round. And what is your pick for this 2nd round?
Well, I have the chance to watch a glimpse of 2 games, Verona Trento, of course, which was a pretty entertaining game, and the one between Modena and Piacenza. So I guess you're gonna talk about Verona Trento too. So I could give some impression about Piacenza and Modena. As you just mentioned, Modena lost the first game against Padova, so they had to bounce back, and they have that match against Piacenza, which basically meant a game against Leal, and we all know how the last season ended for Leal in Modena, and not so well. And the Palapanini remembered Leal, how it went during that game, and it was a pretty entertaining game. Not so, let's say, incredible how it comes down to attacking, but pretty spectacular, because both teams basically rallied strong on every rally, let's say like that. And Lagumsha had a pretty good game, and Gapet was not so consistent, but when Gapet does, then Gapet thinks was pretty unstoppable. Leal also, to me, look pretty good, but Piacenza, and we will also talk about it in the next round against Trento, has a little bit problem in this beginning of the year with Brizard. Brizard, to me, is playing terribly in the first 3 rounds, and the game, especially if you have new outside hitters like Lucarelli and Leal, and you never played with them before, you need to give them the best sets available, and he's not doing it right now. We all know what kind of champion Blizzard is, so it's surely adapt to the players. But for this game, it wasn't enough, and Romano is doing pretty well for his first, because we don't have to forget that is his first year in the Super League as a starter, basically, and is the first 3 games had a good answer, and also was the best for Piacenza in this game against Modena. And Rinaldi is also a player that I was pretty curious to watch now that he's playing as a starter in Modena, and he has to work, but he's on the good way to become something very positive for the team this year.
Yeah, probably there isn't another example in the history of Italian volleyball where a player has his first season as a starter after he became a world champion.
I don't think so.
Yeah. And what do you think about the match between Trento and Verona? Because that was the second win for Verona and the first defeat for Trento. Because Trento was, it's another important point that Trento was actually no, Verona was the host. Sorry, Verona was hosting this match. But actually, by the way, when you now watch Volleyball World, they are changing the titles of the names of the teams according to which core they are having at this moment, and this is actually confusing in terms of who is host and who is a guest.
Yeah, they did it also in the VNL and in the last World Championship, so it's pretty confusing. Yeah, no, honestly, I thought it was a pretty entertaining match, the one between Trento and Verona. Verona with Padova is one of those teams who basically had the chance to work the entire preseason with his starting lineup, basically, except for Mozic and for I don't remember which player of maybe Takahashi is the later that came to Padova, and so they had the chance to develop a very good game. I want to underline the performance of Rafa in this game because 42 years old and doesn't seem like someone who still react that good, who knows what to do. Is a champion, has always been. And on the other side of the court, and Kaczynski, still 38 years old and doesn't look like that. I mean, the 2 old guys were pretty good. Sapozhkov was pretty much unstoppable. 39 points, if I'm not wrong.
39. I believe it is one of the 3 or 4 biggest scoring results of a player in the history of the league. Something like this.
Exactly. And especially the blocking system of Verona worked pretty well. 8 of them by basically half of them. I think Verona scored 16 blocks, which is the highest so far in the Superlega for one game, and 8 of them were by Sapozhkov. So there was an entertaining game, and when the tiebreak, I don't know where the game changed actually. Because it went 17-15, so I think it was an ace of Cortesia, the last point of the game. It could have been other 10 minutes of volleyball for how the two teams were playing, but I will underline it also for the next round of Trento. I'm not too concerned about the performance of the team right now. It's just the beginning. But they show that when they're playing at high level, because there were some, how can I say, some part of the game also against Verona when they played at high level, especially in the third set, they're pretty good to watch. And Verona also. So I think those two teams will will put up a good fight against basically everyone.
Because we mentioned several times Sapozhkov, for the people who are watching or listening to this and they don't know who Sapozhkov is, Maxim Sapozhkov is 22 years of age. He's an opposite. He's tall 2 meters and 20. I repeat, 2 meters and 20. So he's taller than Dmitry Musersky, for example. He's a youngster from Russia. He played for the youth categories of Lokomotiv Novosibirsk, where, by the way, the one of the coaches is Georgi Petrov, a Bulgarian who was formerly assistant coach of Radostin Stoichev in both the national team and in Halkbank in Turkey. Of course, the head coach of the Lokomotiv Novosibirsk team is Plamen Konstantinov, who will be again the head coach of the Bulgarian national team. Then he played for Montana in Bulgaria one season and another team in Russia, and now he's in Verona, and he's really, really impressive. In addition to what you said, let's mention again the Padova win as a guest against LUBE, because this is a very rare occasion. Ran Takahashi great, Petkovic. I believe Davide Saita is doing pretty well together with Corsato, one of the middle blockers, also Volpato, and I don't remember the third one, but there are three of them playing from the Padova middle blockers. Julian Zenger, the former libero of Trento, is also there. So Padova was very impressive in the second round too. And as a transition to the third round, let's start with the first Padova defeat against Cisterna. I didn't watch the match, but still it's very interesting because Cisterna has 9 points out of 9 points possible after 3 rounds. Yes, except probably for Milano, the other two teams were not that popular in terms of names, but still it's very interesting, the statistics here, because very curiously, Cisterna is 4th in reception, 2nd in attack, and 1st in blocking with 3 blocks per set. They're also 7th in serve efficiency. So their place in the ranking in general is nothing as a surprise when it comes to the statistics, and they're really impressive, even though they don't have that popular and world-class names, but they're doing very well with Petar Dirlic, with Marko Sedlacek, with the Turkish talent Efe Bayram. Yeah. What do you think about Cisterna? Because they're really a surprise. I don't think we with Ronnie and Ronnie did that prediction pretty well, at least from what we know so far.
Well, 3 games, 3 victories. I think that nobody would have ever expected that from Cisterna. But on paper, they're not a bad team. I mean, Baranovic is one of the most experienced setter in the Superlega, and it's his 2nd year in Cisterna, so he already has a connection with players like Zingel, for example, like Petar Dirlic. Sedlacek has played in Italy before this season. He played for Monza, for example, and they're having a good time, let's say like that. So we know how Soli, the coach for Cisterna, how he could develop a pretty choral game, who worked pretty well in Ravenna and also in Monza. Now he's working pretty well in Cisterna. I mean, for a team that, if I'm not wrong, had to wait since the last game day, or maybe the one before the last season to be sure not to be relegated in A2, in Serie A2, they're doing pretty well right now. But I wouldn't go too deep, because it's just the first 3 games of the season. I mean, those points will be very valuable for Cisterna at the end of the season, for sure. But the level of how they're playing, it's not so relevant right now. Still, in the third round, I expected something more from Padova, because it was a clash of two of the unbeaten team in the first two rounds, and it was a one-sided game. But I think that if they keep going like that, then we'll have a way more soft season than last one. And why not? I mean, they qualified for the playoff incredibly last year, because if we remember, there were a chance that a team could be relegated in Serie A2 or go to the playoff, as for Cisterna.
Yeah, in the last
season.
round.
So
Yeah.
it could happen again, and we'll see. I mean, I have positive vibes about them. So let's talk about it again in a month or a month and a half, and we'll see where they are.
Yeah, they will play Trento as a guest next in their next match. But what about Trento against Piacenza, or the other way around, Piacenza against Trento? Because Piacenza win their first match against Trento, and actually both teams have only one win from the beginning.
Yeah, Trento played without Sbertoli. He played with the rookie setter, Nicola De Palma, a guy who was playing for the youth teams since this summer. It was at his absolute debut in Serie A1. He never played in Serie A2, for example. He played in Serie A3 two years ago. And that made the difference. I mean, after a first set where the attack of Trento somehow managed to score points, and even thanks to the blocks by Lisinath, then in the development of the game, that was a big lack for Trento. It's true that on the other side, Piacenza was without Leal for this game, and Lucarelli was coming back from an injury. But still, Piacenza could line up Recine, which is not the last man walking around, and Luca Barsic, who's his third or fourth season in Italy, so you know how the thing goes so far. And once again, I personally have seen good things from Trento and silly mistakes, so they are on the good path to win some game, or to rise their level. But without Sbertoli, it's pretty difficult, especially if the backup is a guy who's never played in the Superlega. But by the way, he didn't play so bad. I mean, consider that it was his first game ever, and probably the emotion and something like that could have played a minor role, but it ended up having a pretty good game if you consider everything. But on the other side of the court, we had Piacenza, that, as you said, is probably, after Perugia, one of the best team as a roster in the league. And if something has been proven so far in the first three rounds, it's that the players on the bench will have a major impact toward this season for every team. We saw for Perugia, for example, Perugia lined up Semeniuk and Plotnitsky in game one against Monza. Leon and Plotnitsky in game two against Siena. Leon and Semeniuk in game three against Verona. So if you could rotate the player, or if you have good backups or good alternatives in the bench, then you probably get the upper end in situation like that, where your opponents have to line up a 19 years old guy as a setter.
Yeah, and in order to prove actually that Perugia is the most consistent team, they are first in serve, they are first in reception, they are first in attack, and they also only they're second in team blocking. But this is no surprise. Let's mention LUBE, because we didn't talk about them that much for now. LUBE started with Ivan Zaitsev as an outside hitter in the first match against Taranto. Now Marlon Yant is ready to play, and he was playing in the last match. They beat Modena 3-0. That's impressive. Zaitsev as an opposite, Yant and Botolo as outside hitters, And the Bulgarian young prospect Alex Nikolov is training as an opposite, which is interesting. But now when Zaitsev is back to the opposite position and they have also Gabi, probably Alex will play again as an outside hitter. And yeah, that's interesting case to be examined in the next matches, I believe.
Yeah, and in addition, the game that Zaitsev played as an opposite in the first round against Taranto was also the MVP of the game, so it didn't flinch when it came out to move position from position 2 to position 4. Lube is also one of those teams who have to rebuild basically after the departures of Lucarelli and Simon, of course. But Sinenese looked like someone who's basically already in the mechanism. When you have the Checo playing probably still the best hands in the world of volleyball when it comes down to setting, it's another thing is easier because they're all champions, so everybody's doing its part, but it's a big advantage. And the game against Modena, if I'm not wrong, was the shortest so far in the Superlega. So it was 1 hour and 13 minutes. So it was not just a 3-0. It was a
smashing. I don't know.
Yeah, something that probably the player Modena didn't expect. 25-13, the second set is a huge.
Too big of up and downs for Modena now. Padova then win against Piacenza. Of course, Pala Panini is a very hard place to play at, but yeah, it's with Tommaso Rinaldi as a second outside hitter. Still, he's young, and Erwin Gapet not in the best shape, I believe. It will be very, very tough task for Modena. So things will be very interesting to develop. Let's go to the ranking after the 3 rounds. We have Perugia in first, Cisterna in second with 9 points both, Lube with 7. Milano, after the tough start, they have 5 points. Padova, Verona, Cisterna, Trento, and Modena with 4, but only Padova and Verona have 2 wins. The other 3 teams have only 1, and the teams without. Okay, Taranto has 3 with 1 win. Monza and Siena have no wins so far. Probably Monza are the most negative surprise so far, but it's probably too early to say.
Yeah, it's also because Cacioppa has injured, so they have to play with
Zimmerman.
Second setter, and now they hired Zimmerman for the next games.
Yeah, probably that. Not probably, for sure that influenced their game. So it will be interesting how they will create their mechanisms to play with Jan Zimmerman, who left Poland in order now to play for Monza. And for the 4th round, the next round, so we'll have the matches between Trento, Cisterna, Modena, Milano, Monza, Civitanova, Verona, Taranto. By the way, at last, Verona will play a little bit more of a modest team, because in the first 3 rounds, they have the 3 best on paper this season teams, Piacenza, Trento, and Perugia. Padova against Perugia, I'm not sure. That could be an interesting match. And Siena against Piacenza. So probably Trentino, Trento, and Cisterna, and Modena, Milano looks very curious. So let's say it in this way, matches.
Yeah, and Trento also will play tomorrow on Tuesday against the Lube, because they anticipated the game of the 5th round, I think. Of the 5th round for some reason. Maybe because of the Club World Championship or something like that.
Yeah, probably. That's
it could be the reason. And then we will play against LUBE, and will probably without Sbertli, once again. So I know I have such a big expectation for the next, let's say, at least next week for Trento, next 7-10 days. They will get what they give, and just like that. I mean, that the big teams are focusing probably on the Supercoppa at the end of the month, so they will not risk the players if not necessary. We saw how short is the ranking, except for Perugia. To me, Perugia will win the regular season with 3-4 games to play. It's clearly too much above the other teams to have some problems, and the other teams could change their season with, I don't know, 3 wins in a row. You could go from the 8th place to the 3rd probably. For the in my opinion, the ranking will be a short one from the 2nd to the 8th, 9th, all season long. So it's not worrying for the team that are not haven't clicked yet, and Trento one of these teams surely.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable prediction from your side. I also believe in the same way that there will be a very big gap between Perugia and the others, and it depends on teams like Piacenza, LUBE, probably Trento, if they can go to the top 4 easily, or there will be another team in the mix like Verona, I don't know, Cisterna, why not?
Milano,
yeah, Milan also. Yeah, and I believe that was quite enough for today. After another 3 rounds, probably we can do another episode of the podcast, and let's see how things will develop. Then, if we will have the tendencies we have now developed and continued, or we will have another tendency which are the opposite of the ones we have here. And probably we will have the first, I don't know, defeats of Perugia and Cisterna, why not? Yeah, let's see how things will develop. Thank you, Nicola, for the analysis, and thanks also again to any of the spectators or to the listeners. If you watch or listen to this in the podcast platforms, please do not forget to like the video if you watch that in YouTube, in order to promote it in the ranking of this very interesting algorithm, and of course to subscribe to the channel if you haven't still, and of course for in Twitter and both in Facebook, Piroli di Volley, the page of Nicola. Thank you again for watching or listening, and see you the next time. Bye.
Bye.